So, welcome everyone. My name is Rob Youngren. Let me get my screen share started here. I'm going to be your host. With me are Deb Banks, Executive Director at Sacramento Area Bike Advocates, and Elisa, sorry, from the city of Elk Grove, will be facilitating the meeting with me. We've got a lot of great information to go over with you today. Let's get into it. Everybody's muted by default. We will have some open Q&A session at the end after we go through the slide deck. If you have questions in the meantime, put them in chat. We'll answer them the best we can. There it is. Excellent. I'm Rob. Why should you listen to me about e-bikes? I'm a league certified cycling instructor. For the last 3 years with SABA, I've run a mode shift campaign that encourages people to trade car trips and find alternate means of transportation, mainly focused on e-bikes. So I've done a lot of in-depth study of all the e-bikes out there on the market, gotten people who haven't ridden bikes in 10, 20, 30 plus years to get on an e-bike for the first time. And just really believe that they're an amazing tool for getting around. It's a lot more affordable than owning a car. Um, we will cover a lot of information tonight. What is an e-bike? What isn't an e-bike? Things to consider when shopping for an e-bike. We'll go over all the e-bike classes. We'll talk about some of the legislation that is going on in the state of California um, around e-bike classes, styles of e-bikes that are out there. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of batteries and motors and how that can factor into what e-bike might be right for you. We'll touch on some aspects of maintenance and how e-bikes might be a little different from a normal bike. But we won't get into how-tos. I do have some video resources at the end that are great for learning to work on your own bike. Also, some safety guides, some great videos from People for Bikes, which is an industry trade organization that gets into really great details about riding your bike in traffic and lane positioning, and a lot of details. Smart cycling classes through the League of American Cyclists is another option. There's another program called Cycling Savvy or Savvy Cycling that does a great job educating folks of how to ride on the road safely. And yeah, those are other alternatives. We do have a second session that we're planning for later in the month. We'll look at maybe including some more safe cycling guides in that session. So, what is an electric bicycle? E-bikes are just regular bicycles. They have a battery and a motor that helps you pedal, essentially. Some have a throttle that you can drive the motor without pedaling, but essentially they're just bikes with a little power assist. On a single charge, most e-bikes have a range of about 30 to 80 miles. This can vary. You can find some with more. Some might have a little less, but typically that's about the range you'll expect to see on a single charge of your battery. Yeah. There's e-bikes in basically every style of bike you can imagine. So, if you want like a BMX style bike, I'm sure there's an e-bike version of it. Mountain bikes, commuter bikes, cargo bikes, cruisers, tricycles. There's an e version of pretty much every bike on the road. High end, carbon fiber road bikes. There's an e-bike version of it. The selection is crazy. So we'll help walk you through some of those bikes and help you find out what bike might be right for you. Why should you buy an e-bike? Well, e-bikes are really for everybody. You don't have to be super fit to ride an e-bike. Having that pedal assist allows you to dial up or dial down the amount of effort you put in on a given day. You're feeling real good, want to get a little more exercise, go with the lowest level of assist or turn the assist off completely. But if you need a little help getting up that hill, it's always there to help you. So you really get to decide how easy or more challenging of a ride you might have. Help you tackle hills. It'll help you ride further. Riding into a headwind is pretty challenging on a conventional bike. If you have a 20, 30 mile an hour headwind like we get in the Delta a lot of times, it's not fun. On an e-bike, it's not a problem. E-bikes are super convenient compared to cars. Like, there's no paying for parking. You can pull right up to where you want to go, usually lock to a parking meter or a light post, and walk right in to take care of your business. So, they save you a lot of time in circling parking lots, dropping kids off at school. The car line can be lengthy. E-bikes, you can pull right up to the front. They're incredibly cost efficient. Now, a lot of people balk at the cost of an e-bike, but if you look at the ongoing cost once you purchase it, or compare the purchase price to a vehicle, they are far less than what you would spend to maintain a car or purchase a car. Average e-bike battery costs about 10 cents to charge. That's, you know, and to get 30 to 80 miles on 10 cents is no small feat. There's no insurance required. There's not a lot of expensive upkeep. Regular service intervals are pretty far apart. There's a little few things you need to take care of, but they tend to be fairly cheap to fix. They're incredibly efficient. They talk about miles per gallon equivalent in electric vehicles. So if you take the amount of energy trapped inside of a gallon of gas, which gas is very energy dense, an e-bike will get you 1,000 to 4,000 miles on that amount of energy. Electric vehicle might get you 100 mpge. I have a hybrid car that gets about 50 mpge. So in that aspect, like it's a really wise use of rare earth minerals that go into making the batteries and the motors compared to an electric vehicle that's 20 times less efficient. In our region, 48% of car trips are under 5 miles. So these are, running to take kids to school, going to the grocery store, running errands. All these trips are pretty easily travelable, navigable by bike. And with an e-bike, they can be a lot more fun. Shorter trips are hard on your car. Your car never gets up to its optimal operating temperature, so wear and tear is increased on those short trips. And a 5 mile trip on an e-bike at 15 to 20 miles per hour takes you about 15 minutes. So you're really not, drawing out the process. But most importantly, e-bikes are a lot of fun. And my experience working on a remote shift project, we would take our fleet of e-bikes out to community events, let people test ride them, and they all come back with enormous grins on their face, whether they're avid cyclists or haven't ridden bike in a long time. All the anxiety about can I get up that hill? Can I, will I be too tired when I get to where I need to go to do the stuff I need to do? Will I be too sweaty when I get to work? All that anxiety is just kind of wiped away, and you're reconnected with that joy of cycling. I think, a lot of us felt as kids learning to ride a bike. E-bike classes. There's three legal e-bike classes, and these classes are defined under California law and the California Vehicle Code. There's a lot of bike-shaped objects out there that people refer to as e-bikes, but we're going to mainly focus on the three-class system here. We highly recommend you only buy bikes in the three-class system. Class one has pedal assist only. Both class one and class two will give you pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour. Class two has a throttle. So with a throttle, you can usually drive the motor without pedaling. This is handy if you have a cargo bike. Getting started from a slow speed, that little burst of speed from a throttle can help you get underway more safely. Then class three e-bikes are also pedal assist, but they go up to 28 miles an hour. There's a few different laws around class three e-bikes. You have to wear a helmet by law when operating a class three e-bike, and you need to be 16 years old. So e-bikes under California law are treated just like regular bicycles. This is a photo of the American River Bike Trail here. One of the signs on it, off limits to motor vehicles. Well, class one, two e-bikes are not considered motor vehicles. They are considered bikes under California law, and you're able to ride on the American River Bike Trail. Uh, there is a 15 mile an hour speed limit on the American River Bike Trail, so if you're doing 20 miles an hour, You could get ticketed. It has happened, and there's a little more focus on it these days. You don't have to have a driver's license. You don't need registration or go to the DMV. You don't need license plates. Class 3 bikes, you do have to have a helmet and you got to be over 16. Also, you can't ride those on a lot of multi-use trails. The American River Bike Trail is class 1 and class 2 only. I have a class 3 e-bike. I do not ride on the American River Bike Trail anymore, especially with all the concerns around excessive speeds. But when I did, I still stayed under that 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. So, in my opinion, at that time, like they still sell Lamborghinis to drive on the street. Like it's how you operate it, but should anything happen, you would be liable for riding a vehicle that's not allowed on the American River Bike Trail. We don't want anybody to get in trouble. Then out of class motor vehicles. So these are the e-motos and bicycle shaped objects I referred to earlier. These have motors over 750 watts. That's the max wattage allowed under California law on an e-bike. In Europe, it's 250 watts. They're anything that goes over 28 miles an hour, definitely, not legal for street use. If it doesn't have cranks and pedals, it has to have operable cranks and pedals to be considered an e-bike. There's a lot of little qualifications in the California Vehicle Code of just what fits in that three class system. So if it's got foot pegs, definitely not a bike. If the cranks have been disabled, I've seen JB Weld filled bottom brackets just so they're foot pedals. Yeah, it's an e-moto. E-bike examples. Like I said, there's basically a type of bike, any type of bike you can imagine. There's an e-bike version of it. You got full suspension mountain bikes. These are insanely popular in the mountain biking community because, if you want to ride downhill, you got to get up first. And so on those steep trails, having some power assist is a nice thing to have. High-end road bikes like the Scott pictured, carbon fiber, but a little bit of boost to do some climbing. Soft hardtail mountain bikes, kind of in the middle there, a kind of upright hybrid cruiser bike, beach cruiser. There's we could spend all day talking about the different types of e-bikes out there. One of my favorites are cargo bikes because if you have a motor helping you out, you might as well be able to carry lots of stuff. My bike is a short-tailed cargo bike. I do Costco runs on it. It's great. It keeps me from getting in my car. All those short trips I try and do by bike. Great variety of cargo e-bikes out there, from long tails to short tails. One in the middle is a long john, also known as a Bach feet over in Europe, a Danish style of bike. It's great for hauling stuff around. There's even trikes in that style. We do tend to recommend trikes with two wheels in front. They tend to be a little more stable. Two wheels in back can be fine, and that's the most common style of trike out there, but they tend to tip over a little bit more. So you got to be a little more careful going around corners if you have a two wheel and back style trike. Two wheels in front tends to be a lot more stable. So, these are not e-bikes on the screen right now. The bike on the left side, uh, this is a ride one up, but it's kind of a popular style of bike, kind of modeled after cafe racer style motorcycles. It does have cranks, but it's got a uh, motor of 1,000 watts in it, so it's outside of the legal specs here in California. It does speeds in excess of 28 miles an hour. This is modeled after a very popular style of bike called the Super 73 that a lot of the kids like. Super 73 got wise to the legal action that was preparing against them and have are selling class two specific bikes these days. But there's third-party apps to unlock extra features in it, higher speeds. Some bikes have speed sensors that you can clip a wire, and all of a sudden, that sensor doesn't work, and you can go faster. Any kind of modification to a legal e-bike makes it an e-moto and not legal for street use. These are sold under the auspices of being for off-road use only. but a lot of kids are going to school on them. It's we're hearing lots of problems around kids being able to ride these bikes 30, 40 miles an hour, doing dumb stuff that kids like to do on bikes and getting hurt. And as advocates, we don't want these illegal e-motos to infringe on people who buy legal e-bikes and use them responsibly. We are fighting for your rights to be able to ride bikes in the three-class system. On the right is a Sauron, a very popular style of e-moto. You can notice, no cranks on it, foot pegs, very, looks more like a motorcycle. These things go crazy fast. Kids really love them. Often, both these vehicles tend to get referred to as e-bikes. Definitely not e-bikes. So let's talk a little bit about the warning signs. If your kid asks you, are you buying them an e-moto or an e-moped? It has foot pegs instead of cranks and pedals. Definitely an e-motorcycle. It's got a motor wattage over 750 watts. The Sauron page doesn't list their motor wattage anymore. It used to say like we have got a 3,000 watt motor. They've taken that off and they just don't list wattage whatsoever. If it does speeds over 20 or 28, or it has a factory setting that you can change to go over those speeds, it's an illegal e-moped or e-moto. You can alter hardware settings, or the Super 73s have a third-party app you can download to change the hardware profiles. Bad news. Cutting wires we talked about. One of the things I look at is it designed to cycle comfortably on? Motorcycle shaped seats don't really allow for proper leg motion. The seat isn't adjustable. The seat height isn't adjustable to get proper leg extension. These are signs that you're buying a bike shaped object and not an e-bike. One of the most popular questions that we get asked, how much should I spend, or how much does an e-bike cost? And this has changed a lot over the 3 years that I've been working around e-bikes. At the $1,000 mark a few years ago, you could get a good quality entry level e-bike. Now it's closer to 1,500. Companies are running sales all the time, though. You can find a $1,500 e-bike on sale closer to $1,000, but in that 1,000 to 1,500 range, you're generally getting a decent quality bike with parts that can be replaced and repaired, and they're not cutting a lot of corners. The big box stores and AliExpress, Temu, you might be able to find an e-bike for $200. Uh, yeah, really can't recommend them at all. They're cutting corners in all the places you don't want. You need good brakes if you're riding a heavy bike, going 20 miles an hour. You need good brakes to stop. That's one of the first places they will cut corners. And you also want, if you need a new battery down the road, you need replaceable parts. And so if you stick with the kind of bikes that have, brands that have been in the bike space for a while, or some of the new quality e-bike brands that have come on the last, 5, 10 years. Uh, in that $1,000 to $1,500 spot is a good place to look at. In the mid range, 2,000 to 3,000, it's kind of hard not to make a good e-bike in that price point. And with all things bikes, like they'll get crazy expensive. Like you can spend over $10,000 on a specialized, carbon fiber e-bike if that's your thing. Nothing against it. You know, e-bikes do tend to weigh more than standard bikes. A battery's good 7 to 10 pounds. Motors weigh more. They tend to have overbuilt frames to handle the speed and torque. If you're riding a cargo bike, they're designed to carry good 4 to 600 pounds on them. So they can, range from anywhere from 30 to 60 plus pounds. And that's something to consider if you live upstairs. If you need to put it on a bike rack, look around. There's some interesting options in that 30-pound range on the entry level price point. Brands like Cannondale. I saw a new folding bike just this afternoon on a bike ride. There was a folding carbon fiber bike that goes for that $1,000 to $1,500 price point. There are some interesting options if you need to actually carry your bike to get on transit, get up to your apartment. There are some options, but typically they tend to weigh a lot more than a standard bike. Because you can't carry it upstairs, you need to look at, or hang it in a garage, rack in your garage. You need to look at storage options. Cargo bikes especially can take up a lot of space, so something to consider when shopping for an e-bike. You know, good kickstands are also necessary to have. I think about 2 years ago, there were a lot of entry-level bikes with cheap plastic kickstands on them that would break. And you have a 60-pound bike with no kickstand, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So it's less of a problem these days. We do recommend you store your e-bike indoors. If possible, in your house, in your garage. It's going to be safer there. It's less likely to get stolen. It's not exposed to the elements. Even if your bike's stored in your garage, put a lock on it. Lock the wheel. I had a friend who got his e-cargo bike stolen out of his apartment building garage. He only had a cafe lock on it. Luckily, he got it back, but he was pretty bummed there for a good 2 days. That he didn't put his second lock that he owned on it. Covering your bike. If you have to store it outside, there's a variety of, put a tarp over it. There's motorcycle covers work great, especially for larger cargo e-bikes. Keeps out rain, dust, stuff that, will rust your components or damage your electronics. Uh, you know, there are options if you have to store it outside. Just, get a good lock, get a cover for it. You can make it work. I just watched a great video from an e-bike influencer in New York City who for 5 years has been riding really high-end cargo bikes around New York, only parks them on the street. She has not had one stolen. She's got a great guide. We've got a link to it at the end of the slide deck. Transit options. So, if you need to take your bike on transit, say you have a bike with 30 to 40 miles of range and the place you need to go is 60 miles, is 30 miles away, well, you might want to hop on light rail and get up to Folsom. The Folsom line, Gold Line here in Sacramento does have low floor trains that you can roll your bike on, which is great. The Blue Line is still the old trains that you have to haul your bike up. So it's another thing to consider if you're going to be need to get them up those stairs. You'll want to look at lighter options out there. But taking your battery off can take 7 to 10 pounds off that bike and makes it a lot easier. Team lifting is always a good practice if you have to get up your steps at home. Uh, you know, Light rail on the blue line doesn't like e-bikes using their accessibility ramps because the drivers have to get out and manually lower a ramp, and it slows down train times. So they will not let you board through the accessibility ramps. But we should see the low floor trains hit the blue line in 2027. They're working on all the train stations right now. Amtrak has a 2-inch tire limit on their trains to use their racks. Now, sometimes if the train's not full, you can get away with putting your kickstand down in the bike area, but at peak times, you know that's something to consider in your purchase decision. There's e-bikes out there with a wide range of tire sizes. If you're going to be planning to take the Capital Corridor frequently, stay under that 2-inch limit or at that 2-inch limit to make sure that you can get on and off trains as you desire. So e-bike maintenance, e-bikes do go through the kind of wear items of that all normal bikes have a little bit quicker, and it depends on a couple factors where the motor is. If you have a mid-drive bike, it will go through chains and cassettes a little more quicker than a hub drive bike. We want to make sure that so you'll be replacing brake pads and rotors for disc brakes a little more frequently. Tires, there's lots of e-bike rated tires out there that still have good life, but these are all wear items. A good set of tires is going to run you 100 to 200 bucks. Rotors and cassettes can be anywhere from 20 to $50, somewhere in that range. All these maintenance fees uh, only start to happen after thousands of miles of riding. Nothing like the cost of car ownership, where one trip to the for a service appointment can run multiple years of maintenance on your e-bike. Oh, this slide really gets into the weeds on drivetrain styles. The cassette derailleur chain system that bikes have used for hundreds of years is super efficient, like 99% efficient. That's why you haven't seen a lot of options outside of it. But there are options out there. So this lists some of the things you might find on e-bikes. The bike pictured, the electric one, has a belt drive with a rear hub motor and a pinion gearbox in the bottom bracket. Um, so all the gears are sealed in an oil bath, require less maintenance than a chain does. Belt drives can go 10,000 miles before you're having to change the belt, whereas a conventional chain, if you're lubing it, you need to lube it about every 100, 150 miles. At every, about 1,000 miles, you probably need to replace that chain to avoid wearing down your cassette early. There's geared hubs go into like the rear wheel. Shimano Nexus is an example. Their Alpine, can have 5 to 8 gears sealed in an oil bath. Those do require a little maintenance. You got to change the oil in those every like 5,000 miles. That's a lot of riding. There's a really high-end version called a roll-off that will go 10 to 15,000 miles before maintenance. And then there's CVT transmissions in a lot of e-bikes. This is probably one of the more commonly spotted alternate drive trains. Constantly variable transmissions. You see them in cars. It doesn't have dedicated gear ratios. It's kind of a rolling, easier to cycle, harder to cycle, faster, go faster, go slower, but have more mechanical advantage. And it's an infinite range between its upper and lower limit. So you can just kind of dial it in, and there's no ka-chunk of changing gears. Uh, Always nice to experience those bikes when you're shopping for an e-bike. See what feels best to you, and what fits your budget. Oh, I mentioned a little bit about hub drive and mid drive motors. These are kind of the two main distinctions between where the motor's placed. So, hub drive motors either have the motor built in the rear wheel or the front wheel. And these tend to have a little bit more of a push or pull feel to them. As depending on where that motor is, if it's in the rear wheel, when that motor kicks in, it feels like a strong winds at your back, and in the front wheel, it feels a little bit more like you're being pulled. Mid drive has a little more natural bicycle feel to it because that motor is in between the crank arms. So as you're pedaling, that motor's in there instantly engaging, and it just feels like you have super legs. Uh, you know, the bikes do tend to fit a little differently with the mid drive. They tend to have a higher bottom bracket height, so you need a little higher seat level than most people are accustomed to get the proper leg extension. But pretty much all bikes you're going to see out there are either hub drive or mid drive. The difference between in ride feel has changed a lot. It used to be, especially entry level bikes with hub drives, only came with cadence sensors. So these are the sensors that tells the computer how fast you're spinning your legs, and those are less expensive sensors, and it was rare to find hub drive motors with torque sensors, and torque sensors tell the computer how hard you're pedaling. So with the torque sensor, the computer knows how much work you're putting in and can vary that power assist level depending on how hard you're working. So if you're struggling, the computer is going to automatically give you more pedal assist. That doesn't happen with the cadence sensor. It only knows if you're spinning slow or spinning fast. Now, a lot of entry bikes have both these types of sensors on hub drive bikes, and they feel almost as natural as the mid drive bikes do. So we've come a long way in just a couple of years on the quality of those entry level models. Make it almost a no brainer to go with the less expensive to maintain, less expensive to manufacture hub drive models. Are not a huge sacrifice compared to the fancy mid drive models. Battery safety. This was, the hot button issue a couple years ago with e-bikes before the e-moto problem really kind of reared its head. Fire statistics around e-bikes are difficult to parse. E-bikes get lumped in with all personal mobility devices like hoverboards and scooters that maybe aren't manufactured to the uh, same safety standards as e-bikes are. especially with a lot of unregulated e-bikes sold in the early days. They could, charging them could start fires more often than they do now. New York had the biggest problem, especially with delivery drivers on bike on batteries and motors that weren't UL certified by the Underwriters Laboratory. They did a lot of swap out campaigns so people could bring in their uncertified bikes, get a safer bike, and it's basically wiped out the fire problem. Pretty much every bike sold in California, legally sold in California, has to have it at this point. And having that certification, if you rent, is the key to having your landlord not get upset at you. But unplug your battery when it's fully charged. Don't leave it plugged in for extended periods of time. Look for bikes with batteries that use quality cells. LG, Samsung, Panasonic are all reputable companies. There's a lot of Chinese suppliers in there that still make decent batteries these days that meet these certification standards. So, the UL certification has really helped demystify, what you're looking at and the quality associated with it. So there's a couple different standards that can also, are a little stricter than UL certification. EN is the European standard. IEC is the international standard. Just look for, most of the bikes you're going to see out there on the market are UL certified. Look for that and, rest easy at night. If you're super worried about it, there are, charging boxes and bags that basically are contained in the case of a fire that you can purchase. And it's always good to check your insurance or, homeowners association if they have rules about e-bike storage. If you're gonna not be riding your bike for a while, run down that battery. Don't leave it fully charged and sitting for 6 months. It will help the longevity of it. Buying a bike from a reputable producer means that, in 4 to 5 years, if you need a new battery, I know people who have been riding their same e-bike battery for 6 years and haven't noticed a lot of degradation to the range. But buying from a reputable company, you're going to be able to replace that battery when you need to, 6, plus years down the road. It keeps your bike from getting into a landfill if you can, replace that one piece that you need. Uh, Definitely something to consider in your purchase decision. Um, yeah, there's no battery standard. Some of them fit into a down tube. Some of them are different shapes than others. Every manufacturer has their own proprietary case. So you want to buy from a company that's going to be around in 5 to 6 years when you need it. They're definitely recyclable. There's a lot of rare earth minerals in them. Lithium in and of itself is very valuable. So when that battery does come to the end of its lifespan, you want to recycle it. There's a great website. We have a PDF of all these slides for you to check out that we can share with you at the end. And then, the 80/20 rule is really important for batteries. It takes about uh, you know, batteries charge really quick to that 80% full level, and then they start trickle charging to evenly charge in that last 20%. So people always want to know how long does it take to charge? Well, it depends on the size of your battery and the throughput of your charger. But to get to that 80% point happens real quick. So if a battery takes, let's say 4 hours to charge, you can get to that 80% point in like 2 hours, and then maybe a trickle charges that last 20% over the next couple hours. And you still get great range off an 80% battery. Don't It's hot in Sacramento during the summertime. Don't leave your fully charged battery in your 110-degree garage. It does get a little cold in the winter. That will shrink your range. Not as detrimental to the health of the battery as storing it in a 110-degree weather in a hot garage with no air conditioning. Just common sense stuff, really. Oh, this slide gets into the kind of, if you really want to learn more about the technical side of, battery power and motor power and the interface of them, tries to demystify, amps and watts and figuring out watt hours. But what I really want to talk about is motor power. So you can find legal e-bikes with motors that will go up to 750 watts. 750 watts is 1 horsepower. Do all bikes need a 750 watt motor? Not really. I have a 750 watt motor on my cargo bike. It's designed to carry lots of stuff. It's still overpowered. I use mode one and two assist pretty much exclusively. I've ridden a bunch of bikes that have 350 watt motors, every bit as zippy as my 750 watt motor. Those motors are going to sip electricity off your battery compared to my 750 watt motor. Also, when you stop pedaling them, they coast a lot easier. My bike, because the magnets inside that motor, or the resistance inside that motor, if I stop pedaling, I'm slowing down. It does not coast as well. And there's bikes out there with 250 watt motors as well, and depends on the torque that they have. Like try a variety. You may not need the most powerful motor out there. There's always a number war in American electronics industry, so bigger is not always better. If you want more range, look in that 350 to 500 watt range. You'll have a lot more efficient drive system, and use your gears. Having a bike with gears on it really helps that motor behave more efficiently and puts less strain on it if you're working along with it. Speaking of working along with it, try to stay away from doing any math in these classes. But if you're pedaling along with the pedal assist and providing some of that work, you're going to get a lot further than if you have a class two bicycle and just lay on the throttle. It's about half as efficient to uh, use the throttle only and not pedal. So if range is a problem, and you have a class two e-bike, you'll get twice as far if you're pedaling with it than you will if you just let the throttle do all the work, and you'll get more use out of your battery and motor in the long run as well. Oh, but manufacturers estimates, we every manufacturer puts out a guide like you'll get 60 miles on this battery. Take those stats, with a few grains of salt. They are basing those off of the first level of power assist only, and they're riding on flat ground in perfect condition. So if you ride a lot of hills, you're going to see less. If you're a bigger rider, you're going to see less range off of it. If you ride in mode two, mode three, higher levels of assist more consistently, you're going to see a lot less range. Like my e-bike does a 20% boost to my pedaling power in mode one. If I go up to mode two, well, it does a 40% of my pedaling power. So if I'm putting out 100 watts in mode one, it gives me 20 watts of help. And once I go up to mode two, it starts giving me 40 watts of help. That's double the power. And so I get half the range. These are considerations if you need to ride further. So on a 60-mile uh, estimated range, if I'm riding in mode one and going into downtown and back, I can get a good 55 miles of range out of it. If I'm in mode two, though, I have to recharge at work. Things to consider. Weather, riding into a headwind is going to reduce your range. Lots of hills, uh, carrying a large load is going to make that motor work harder. All these things can affect range. So take those manufacturers, range estimates, and know those are best case scenario. Accessories, kind of having a nice bike, you need some stuff to go with it. And number one is a good lock. I think most people are concerned about keeping their e-bike and bike theft. A good quality bike lock is going to cost you 75 to 200 bucks. For a top of the line model, that 200 might be worth it. I went kind of in between those levels for high quality U-lock. And the nicer your bike, the nicer your lock. You don't want to be the nicest bike at the bike rack with the worst lock. That's the low hanging fruit that bike thieves will go after. You want to make it as hard for them to break your lock as possible. There are battery powered angle grinders and all sorts of tools that can cut through pretty much any lock out there. But if they choose to go through your lock, you want to make sure that that angle grinder goes through 4, 5, 6 cutting discs rather than a set of hand snips that can just blink and be gone. Because they're gonna, it's a crime of opportunity. They're gonna take the easiest lock on the bike rack. So build that lock into your bike budget. Kryptonite's a great company, been around for a long time. Their New York series is kind of their top of the line models, really high quality steel. Abus is a German company that also makes locks. Both those companies have security tiers to them. Look in the higher ranges of those. You should be fine. Helmets. We recommend them for all riders. It's not legally required for a class one and two e-bike, but it's a good idea. You do have to wear them for a class three e-bike, though. Optional clothing to think about, gloves. If you've ever fallen off a bike, first thing you do is put your hands out. Scraping up your hands hurts a lot and they take forever to heal. Gloves help with that. Hopefully you don't need them. Nice thing to have. Eye protection. I wear glasses, but having some eye protection on your bike is a great idea. I've had bees sting me in the face, twigs fall from trees on the bike trail and hit me, rocks get kicked up by bikes in front of me. Protect your vision. It's a valuable asset. Wear some eye protection out there. Padded shorts, not necessary, but some people find they can ride further with and be more comfortable on a bike with a pair of liner shorts, or if you want to go the lycra route, it's definitely an option. They are supremely comfortable, and if you're doing longer distance rides, more than like 20, 30 minutes at a time, something to consider. Then customizing your bike fit. A lot of bikes are coming with adjustable stems that you can change how far the handlebars reach out in front of you, and you can really dial in your fit that way. But if it's got a static stem on it, you may need to bring that stem in a little bit or change your reach to get comfortable. Saddles are a very personal fit thing. Some people like the feel of a certain brand or a certain shape. So if you and they're one of the cheapest things to come on the bike. Any new bike is gonna they they're not going to give you a super nice saddle or super nice pedals. So, spending $100 on a good quality saddle can make a huge difference in your comfort. Pedals, I've got really wide feet, and my feet don't fit on a lot of pedals, so I always upgrade pedals. Also, they're a little bit of bling, kind of nice to decorate your bike and give it some personal style. So I opt for wider pedals. Some people like to clip in. Some people like super light or thin pedals. There's lots of options out there. Not something you have to change the day you get the bike, but as after you've bought it and ridden a bunch, you may be something you want to upgrade. Rear view mirror is a great safety option, especially if you have a hard time looking behind you on a bike. There is a trick because turning on a bike, you tend to turn the handlebars. So having a bar end mount mirror or a helmet mount mirror allows you to see traffic that's coming behind you. There's also rear lights out there on the market that have like a radar function to let you know when a car is approaching you. There's lots of trick stuff out there. Most e-bikes are coming with lights these days. Definitely need lights. Dusk and dawn are one of the most hazardous times for bike riders, and anything that helps you be seen is definitely needed. Most bikes on the market will have front and rear lights, but battery powered lights can do the job just as well. With lithium ion batteries, you can get a light that has 8 to 12 hours of use off of a single charge. So if the bike you like doesn't have a light on it, then budget a little bit to drop 50 to $100 on some good quality bike lights. You'll It'll be just as good as having them wired in the system. Nice thing about having them wired into your system, you've got a giant battery on an e-bike. You never have to worry about charging it. Buying your e-bike. It's interesting days. Yeah, we've got lots of great bike shops in the Sacramento region. In Elk Grove, you got Cadence Bike Shop that has a good selection of quality e-bikes. Having that relationship with your local shop is great, especially if you need service down the road or if you buy from them. Usually, there's some service package that's uh, you know comes with with the purchase price of your bike. They'll give you you know uh, checkups for the first year or 2 years of ownership, or help you dial in fit or fix minor things that are wrong. There's a lot of good companies that are selling direct to consumer. Um, usually some assembly is required, so if you're not mechanically handy, you can oftentimes have them ship it to one of their partner bike shops to have that final assembly done. But again, having a relationship with the local shop is super important. When you walk into that bike shop, it's good to know kind of what you're looking for. And what style of bike are you looking for? Is there a certain type of drivetrain features that you want to check out, or you just test ride? The more you can kind of have an idea of what's out there on the market, and hopefully this presentation gives you some idea of what might work for you. It helps you communicate with the bike shop staff of what you're going to be using the bike for. How far do you need to go? Those considerations. Most bike shops will absolutely let you test ride pretty much any bike in there. Some might hold on to a driver's license or a credit card just to make sure you come back, but get out there and test ride as many types of bikes as you can because everybody's different, and what feels good and comfortable on a certain bike frame to me may not to you, and your body doesn't lie. I really believe like once you get on that bike that is a good fit for you, you just kind of know. It's like, oh, this feels right. So try as many as you can out there on the market and see what works best for you. Ask about warranties. What's the manufacturer warranty? What's included in that? What's the shop warranty? How long can I bring it back? Can I get free flat fixes? Or, find out exactly what they're going to cover. Repairs. So not every bike shop will work on every kind of e-bike. They tend to work on just the bikes they sell right now. So if you buy an online, direct to consumer bike, you may have limited options on what bike shops will work on it. Like Mike's Bikes sells, a lot of different brands, Cannondale, Gazelles, Urban Arrows, probably more than a, but if you take an Aventon e-bike in there, they won't work on it. Or they'll work on some of the bike aspects of it, but they'll have you take your battery with you, and it's an uncomfortable conversation. So, you know, goes to that having that relationship with an existing bike shop. And, and ask them about getting replacement parts. Those are important. Wrapping up here, insurance, bike insurance is a thing. I pulled these price quotes a couple of years ago when we started doing this. I need to go back and refresh them, but for $9 a month, you can insure a $1,500 e-bike against theft, damage. So there's a bunch of companies out there that offer it: GCN, Sundays Insurance, Velo Insurance. Just Google e-bike insurance. Having a policy is not a bad thing on an e-bike, especially if it's your main means of transportation. Hey, we're in the final stretch. So this, if you download the PDF of today's deck, all these links are active. SABA has a YouTube channel with a e-bike 101 playlist on it. Includes our videos and other people's videos we think are valuable. Talks a little bit about safety. A lot of the things we discussed, or I've talked about here today, are broken down into smaller chunks on our video series. People for Bikes is an industry trade group of bicycle manufacturers and parts makers. They have a lot of great videos. Their rider safety video really gets into the nuts and bolts of where to be in the lane, being in the rightmost lane that serves your destination, and a lot of the kind of basic rules that we teach as league certified instructors. There's a great video from REI on e-bike shopping. Not Just Bikes is a great kind of transit channel. He's got a video on cargo bikes that is one of my favorite things in the world. Cargo Bike Mama is the lady who's owned like $5,000 to $7,000 e-bikes and parks them on the streets of New York exclusively. And she's got a great guide as to how she's done that for 5+ years and not had a bike stolen. If you're interested in learning how to wrench on your bikes and maintain them, Park Tool is a bike tool manufacturer. They have the best videos on how to do anything to a bike. It's not e-bike specific. Typically, they might have a couple e-bike videos in there, but mainly what you need to know is, how do I change my brakes? How do I fix a flat? How do you fix the bicycle stuff on it? Nobody's going to recommend that you open up the battery case or swap out a motor. But fixing all those little bike, all the bike parts of it are super easy. Calvin Jones just recently retired, but has made the lion's share of those videos. He is an amazing teacher. And last but not least, the ABC Quick Check. This is something you do before every ride. A is for air. Make sure your tires are inflated. B is for brakes. They're properly adjusted. C for chain and cranks. Make sure that they're clean, recently lubed. They're in good shape, running order. Check your quick releases on like your seat posts and stuff. That your seat's not going to slide down. And then take a spin around the block. Make sure it's functioning all right. Always vital to check those before every ride. And we made it. Thank you for bearing with me. That I know it's a lot of information. Try and get through it as quickly as possible, but love to open it up to some questions now.